Hey everyone, what's up? How's everybody doing? Um, if you're up this late in the United States to view this, I appreciate it. Some of you who may be listeners from the UK, I know that Hilarious Zulu listens in the UK, and then there's Stalo Blue who listens from the UK. Then it may be very, very early morning that you're catching this. I was just recently in Hana's Hangout, and we were talking about abortion. And I want to discuss what I believe the bottom line is and some afterthoughts from my interaction in that room. First and foremost, I want to say that how I was treated in that room was nothing short of respectful, nothing short of awesome. So I want to give the topmost props to Hannah for running that room very, very smoothly. And I was treated very, very well in there, and everybody was very nice. We're all very passionate about this issue, but they treated me extremely well in there, and I really appreciate that. So I have to just get that out the way first. They didn't overtalk me, they didn't insult me or anything like that. They treated me extremely well, and I really, really appreciate that. But just getting into the meat of the discussion, we were talking about the issue of looking at abortion from a numbers game. Um, Jade had said, okay, we might be able to at least agree that we should look at abortion as one to reduce them in numbers. If we're not going to agree on the moral issue, then hold on a sec. I'm getting a message. Just one moment. Sorry about that. Just had to take care of a little phone call real quick. But anyway, as I was saying, Jay brought up in Hannah's Hangout that if we're not going to agree on the moral issue, then at the very least, we should agree with wanting to reduce the abortion numbers. Now, I have no problem with having that conversation, but my whole issue was this. If we are going to talk about decreasing the abortion numbers, then are we overlooking the end goal behind this? Is the end goal that we simply feel better about reducing the numbers, or is the end goal um, protecting unborn children? My argument was essentially as follows: if we reduce numbers, that's one thing, but that in no way connects to whether or not abortion should be morally permissible or not. Because we can reduce the number all day long, that's fine. But if we still have legal elective killing on the table, we're basically saying is we're okay with a woman pursuing that legal option. We find it uncomfortable for the numbers to be too high, so we're going to do whatever we can to prevent them from being ridiculously high, and we want them to be low as possible, but we're still going to okay that after all that, if we reduce the numbers, we were successful in that regard. After all that, we still are going to permit the elective killing if a woman decides to choose that. Being successful in reducing the numbers still does not ignore the possibility that a woman will electively choose to kill her child. And we're going to say that should be okay to leave that option on the table after we've successfully reduced abortions. No, I don't care if you're talking about one child or you're talking about 1 million. If you're going to argue that it should be okay at all for the legal option to be on the table, whether it's the death of one innocent child or the death of 1 million innocent children, no number, whether you decrease it or not, justifies the brutal slaughter of children. You can decrease abortions by 95%. If you are going to basically turn your head and thumb your nose at even one child being killed electively, then the fact that you permitted more of them to be killed means absolutely nothing to me. That's just like saying, and let's put forth a hypothetical. We were talking about hypotheticals in Hangout, and Redline had presented me some hypotheticals, so let me put forth one myself. We are okay. I'm losing my train of thought here. Um, okay. Here's the hypothetical. We successfully reduced 95% of abortions. Well, let's put it even more. Here's the hypothetical. We reduce 99.99999 plus percent of abortions. We successfully do this. One, though, to happen because one woman said, after all that has been considered, I still want to get an elective abortion. No, we're still going to say, okay, it's okay that you go into this clinic. And even though after considering everything we told you, we're going to say it's okay for you to still go into a clinic and electively decide to kill your child. No problem. We permitted or prevented these countless others from being killed, but we're going to let you kill yours. So that's fine. That's just like me saying that, let's say hypothetically speaking, okay, now I got my train of thought back. Here's the hypothetical. Since we're going to talk about hypotheticals in Hana's Hangout, let's talk about this hypothetical. Let's say we have a government which says rape is legal. And we say, well, let's not take legal rape off the table, but instead let's talk about changing the mindset of reducing rape. Let's inform people that you should not rape others. But we're going to leave it on the table legally that if after considering everything and you still decide to rape somebody, then it should still be on the table. We can decrease rapes drastically, but we're still going to allow that legal choice to rape somebody. If you so choose to do so, you have that legal choice to rape somebody, even if we are successful in reducing rapes. Now, if you see the fundamental flaw with that argument, then why do you not see the same problem with the abortion argument? We're literally saying that if we reduce murder, it's okay to prevent a smaller number of murders. If we reduce a bigger number of murders, it's okay to legally permit a smaller number of potential murders. That's exactly like saying if we look at a hypothetical situation and rape is legal, if we reduce a drastic number of rapes, it's okay that we permit a potential smaller number of rapes. That's garbage. And I make absolutely no apologies for being against such asinine thinking. The numbers, and it's essentially us trying to feel better morally about the issue because they're saying, well, nobody likes abortion, but it's not going to be taken off the table. Well, again, if we go back to the hypothetical, we say, oh, nobody likes rape. We're not going to take rape off the table. Nobody likes rape, but let's keep rape there. If someone chooses to pursue that option, it makes no sense. The logic does not follow whatsoever. So, what I was getting constantly was look at this as a numbers issue. If you're going to just look at this as um, a numbers issue, then how many numbers is it going to take before you see that murdering any child in the womb is not okay? How many numbers are going to drop before you say this should not be happening? This should not be permitted in our laws. No numbers, no matter how much you drop the numbers, you're never going to say that a woman should not have that elective choice. Or, well, I'm not going to say you're never going to say it, but if you remain pro choice, then you've basically said that you're going to permit that elective choice. But the fact that you even want to reduce abortions at all, directly or indirectly, is telling me that you see a problem with abortion. In fact, many pro-choicers or those who identify as pro-choicers would say that they have problems with abortion. Abortion is not good. Abortion is not good, but we're still going to keep it legal. That's just like saying rape is not good, but we're going to keep rape legal. No. If you can see the weakness in one, you can see the weakness in the other. But then the objection would be, well, no, the unborn isn't really a person. The unborn doesn't have rights and all that. What I have to talk about is what is the nature of the unborn? Then all that would have to be flushed out. Only if you permit or think that it's okay to kill the unborn electively would you come to the conclusion that it's different than the rape circumstance. Only if you think the unborn's nature is different than a woman who's raped. If you think the unborn has no rights, has no protections, is different in protective nature than a woman who's raped, only if you think that would you even claim that the cases aren't the same. But then you have to justify why the unborn, doesn't have the same nature and protective value that a woman outside the womb has, or any human outside the womb has. But one can also use the subjective logic to say, well, women who are raped have no sort of protective value. You just assert that they have protective value. There's no reason to think that they do. You just kind of say that they do. So or the person who's putting forth their opinion, in their subjective opinion, women have no protective value at all. So hypothetically speaking, women have no protective value at all, and it's legal to rape women because they have no protective value. It's just comes down to defining life and defining who has rights and this and that. We're playing a bunch of games with definitions and using the same sort of argumentation for women. The problem is exactly what Dee points out all the time is that people are coming into these discussions, coming to the table with certain worldviews. Those worldviews, typically one worldviews which deny the Christian God as a moral framework, are going to have these sorts of justifications. They're going to justify killing humans in one case and forbidding it in other cases. If you're dealing with cases, you're going to have people who say that we as men are the arbiters of who has rights and who doesn't. We as men have are the arbiters of who we define as persons, humans, etc., and who we do not. That's what it all comes down to. The autonomous reasoning of men. When you reject the Christian God as the basis, it comes back to the autonomous reasoning of men. I believe that's exactly why D.D. presses um, the pro-choicer who ultimately denies the Christian God because they're testing those baseline foundations, those um, frameworks that they hold to without the God paradigm in them. That's why he presses them on that because ultimately, when they deny any sort of um, morally moral objective framework, when they deny moral objective standards, then it's perfectly permissible for them to argue all over the place. They have no obligation in their worldview to hold all humans equally in the same protective framework. They have no obligation to do that in their worldviews. So, this is the only reason why they would make these arguments. Now, I understand there are pro-life atheists, and they would put forth different arguments, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that there are non-believers who are pro-life atheists who will put forth arguments as to why abortion should not be permitted. But I will let them put forth their arguments for that, and I will let them defend that. But as far as me being a Christian and being pro-life, the way I see it is when the non-believer takes God out the picture, it allows them to reason in all sorts of autonomous subjective ways. They can very well on a whim say, well, we're going to allow abortion up until this time period in pregnancy. Then when the unborn can feel pain, then we're not going to allow it. If in other states they'll say, well, we still think the mother should have that choice. So yeah, it's great that the unborn can feel pain at this point, but she should still have that choice. And then another state it's different, and then another state is different. Um, the moral framework is all over the place when you take the Christian God out the picture. So of course they think it's okay to justify killing the unborn because ultimately speaking, they are denying um, the objective the objective framework which is reflected in God's nature. But again, like I said, I do appreciate that there are non-believers who can recognize the fallacy of thinking abortion is okay. I respect that. I would allow them to put forth their arguments as to why, in their framework of non-belief, that they can challenge other non-believers who don't hold the same view they do. I would let them make that argument. But again, my thing is going back to what I was talking about in Hannah's Hangout. The bottom line for me is this: you can talk about numbers all day, about decreasing abortions. We can talk about contraceptive access all day. We can talk about education all day. But those are quite clearly to me nothing more than red herring distractions for people to make themselves feel better about um, having abortion as a legal elective option on the table, because they're saying, hey, if this many women don't seek this legal elective option, if a greater number or the greatest potential number don't seek this elective option, then awesome, awesome. That's great. That's amazing, because we don't want women to seek that elective option. So we're going to talk about how we can educate them to reduce the numbers. So that's awesome. Now they feel better. But the one woman, let's just say hypothetically speaking, the one woman who pursues that elective option anyway, they're going to be like, well, you know what? There's nothing we can do about that. That's her choice. So let's permit her to pursue that legal option to murder her child. But we prevented all these millions of others from uh, pursuing that elective legal option. Hooray, hooray. But we've permitted her. It's just like saying you've talked to, going back to the hypothetical I talked about earlier, it's just like saying you've permitted or prevented, through whatever it means, to prevent all these other dudes from raping women. But after all your talking and all your measures and um, whatever uh, whatever sort of means you have to convince men not to rape women, you've prevented millions and millions of men from doing this. You were successful, but that one dude who goes to rape a woman after all that, you say, yes, it should be legal for him to do. I don't like it, but it's legal to do so. No. Why would you honestly think that that logic is okay? Because you prevented others that it's okay for one innocent, even one innocent person to be morally affected. Even one innocent person. It would, if they actually had a legit conscience, they would not think it's okay to legally permit even one dude to rape a woman. Even if they were successful in preventing millions of other dudes from doing so, they would not think it's okay for that to be legally permitted. If they actually had any sort of moral decency, they would not think that's okay. So why in the world would they turn a blind eye to one woman getting an elective procedure to kill her child just because they were successful in preventing other women from doing it, from seeking that on the table legal elective option? It doesn't matter if it's one or 1 million. If you have it legal to do this, that is not okay. Period. You don't distract from your permission, you permitting the matter because you looked over to this red herring side thing and say, we've lowered the number. We've lowered the number over here. So it don't have to matter over here that a woman chooses the elective procedure. It's absurd. It's beyond absurd. Can't use the sort of numbers thinking and think it's okay with rape because we were talking about hypotheticals and there were at least one or two hypotheticals discussed and put forth to me in Hana's Hangout. If we're going to talk about hypotheticals, then we're going to talk about the hypothetical of rape being legal. Deal with that hypothetical too and follow your logic to its consistent conclusion. If you apply the logic to rape and you actually have any sort of moral recognition that rape is wrong, then you will immediately recognize the fallacy of that thinking. You don't need to accept any belief in God to recognize the fallacy of that thinking. So I don't understand why we're going to use this numbers argument to make us feel better. That's what it comes down to. Whether one overtly admits that or not, it's literally about one thing: making yourself feel better about an issue that you readily admit that you don't think is good. They'll say nobody likes abortion, nobody thinks this is good. So, because we don't think this is good, let's reduce the number. And if we reduce the number, that's good. And if that's good, that makes them feel better. Ultimately, it's about making themselves feel better. That is logically unavoidable. If you want to make this argument just to make yourself feel better, then you've missed the boat. Because here's the issue: if abortion is so bad, then why is abortion bad? That begs the question. If nobody really likes abortions, then why is it bad? Is it bad because it's killing a person? Is it bad because it's killing a human being? Why is it bad? If it's not bad because um, if it's not bad because it's killing a human being, if it's not bad because it's killing a person, then what reason do you find abortion to be bad? What reason do you find abortion to be a problem? You can't just sit up here and say, hey, again, go back to the hypothetical. I find rape to be bad, but I'm not. But if someone chooses to rape someone, I'm not going to take away their choice to do so. No, if you have any sort of basic decency, you would see the fallacy in that thinking. And if you see the fallacy in that thinking, you need to consistently apply it to the abortion issue too. And if you're going to move the goalposts and then say, well, the unborn isn't a person, isn't a human, and all this, then one can logically move the goalposts, hypothetically speaking, and say, well, this woman isn't a person with rights or anything like that. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to move the issue and the goalposts and the abortion issue, then the goalposts can be moved in the rape example. If this is how we're going to go about justifying abortion, then you've already lost the intellectual discussion, point blank. People who tend to identify as pro choice constantly bring up these red herrings. Let's reduce the number. Uh, Pro-lifers don't care about children when they're born. Um, if you really were for women's choices, you believe in contraceptive access and blah, 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 blah. They keep shifting elsewhere. They do not and cannot justify their position on the merits of the issue alone. The question is, should abortion be legally permissible or not? And they cannot justify that on that basis alone. What they have to do is keep people's eye off the ball and shift it a million places elsewhere. But I'm not the one to fall for these shiftings, this shift in um, reasoning, this shift in because you fail to justify it here, you're going to shift it elsewhere to distract me. I'm not going to fall for that, and I don't. I always bring it back to the central question: is abortion, or rather, should abortion be morally permissible or not? You are not going to distract me from the pertinent issue. You are not going to knock me off my square. I'm going to press you continually on justifying the act of abortion itself. You're not going to go on these rabbit trails with me and try to distract me from your own failure to justify your position. You're not going to do it. So, those are my basic thoughts. And I could say more, but I'll probably just be rambling at this point. But the bottom line is the numbers game. I don't care how you want to argue it, how you want to justify it. Decreasing numbers does not change the fact that at the end of the day, you still will not take away the elective option for a woman to kill her child. And if you do not believe in taking that away, it doesn't matter if you decrease the number to zero. The fact that you even think that should be permitted at all means your moral framework sucks. You think it should be permitted, period, for a woman to seek to kill, to murder her own child, and reducing it down to even zero absolve you of you permitting that it should be possible, that it should be legal at all. That does not absolve you of that. Again, you can, in the hypothetical example of rape, you can reduce rape down to zero. That doesn't change the fact that you are a disgusting individual for thinking it should be legal at all. And I think you need to consider your moral framework that you think it should be legal at all, whether it's one child potentially killed or 1 million. That's my thoughts, and that's why I'll leave it at that before I end up rambling all over the place. But I thank everyone for watching, whether it be really late at night or very early in the morning, depending on where you are in the world. Take care, God bless, and peace.